the page number 24 the end of the paragraph, see the Purupaksha. From Ekiya Matavarnanam onwards, right up to the end of the first paragraph on 24th page is Purupaksha. And the entire Purupaksha has explained the central point of this Mula Vidyavadi is that ignorance transforms to become wisdom. So it creates a logical problem. Because change is a phenomenon which is seen in the creation. So there is change seen inside the creation. There are individual objects. We see individual names and forms change. We don't see creation changing. Creation appears, disappears, which cannot be strictly speaking called change, parinama. If a thought begins and ends, you don't call it really parinama. Parinama means if a thought continues to be there, now it is less intense, now it is more intense. Now it is soft and now it is harsh. Then we call it as change. Like for the changes to take place in the body has to be there. But appearance, now disappears. You can't call it change. Then what do you call it? That's called really, that's a different thing. What? For something to appear and for something to disappear, you don't require change. It is a different thing from change. It is something different from change. Appearance, disappearance. So the creation, the 5 elements continue to be 5 elements. There is no change. 5 elements don't change and become 6 elements. Each individual form changes, but it doesn't become changeless, formless. The form doesn't change and become formless. See? So there are changes in the individual objects. But creation as a whole doesn't change. Time also doesn't change. Time appears and disappears. That way what is within our experience is not changed at all. What is within our experience fundamentally is appearance and disappearance. Even life itself appears and disappears. Changes are marginal, that is nothing. Within the appearance are the changes. As long as something appears, there are changes. As long as there is appearance, there are changes in it. But then ultimately, along with all those changes, it disappears. Therefore, it is better to register fundamentally the appearance and disappearance of the phenomena rather than changes. You have no explanation for the change. You have explanation only for the appearance and disappearance. What never appears and disappears is the explanation for. What never appears, what is always there is the explanation for what appears. What appears and disappears and disappears in the truth which always is. What is change? Change is a detail inside that appearance. Inside that appearance doesn't change. Change appears. Appearance doesn't change. Change is a part of appearance. Change is a part of appearance. They have started their class. They also start. But something appreciable about them is They are so much in time. They never late. They are so much in time. We may be 1 minute, 2 minutes late, but they start their class time. Ram, Ram, Ram. And therefore, to say that something appears due to change is wrong. Inside the appearance is the change seen, not behind the appearance. If the universe appears, it doesn't presuppose some change. If suddenly you fall asleep, it doesn't presuppose any change. The result of change also has to change. The result of change also has to change. But here, the very change disappears. The very disappearance of change is not the result of change. What about that? So a reflective person has to take into account all these things. Yeah, it's not easy to make a statement and defend it. People may say something, can you defend it? You press inquiry. It just fizzles out. That is why here, now the Siddhantam is going to start. The embodiment is not the result of change. Embodiment is an appearance in the embodiment-free self. And embodiment is an error about the truth due to ignorance. It is not the result of any change. Embodiment is not the result of change on the part of ignorance, nor is it a result of change on the part of the truth. Then what is it? It is not a result of change. It is felt due to ignorance, non-understanding of the reality. It's a distortion of a truth. Distortion of a truth is different from the result of a change. If I see the rope for snake, it's a distortion of the truth. If the milk becomes curd, it's a result of a change. If a young man becomes an old man, it's a result of a change. But in the first place, the very thought that I am the body, the very life, to be born as the form, to find oneself as a given form is not a result of change. Thus life is not a result of change. Life is a perception, a distorted perception about oneself, the truth, the distorted perception. It's called adhyasa. That's why it is called bhranti. That's why it is called bhranti, adhyasa, viparita. And only when the problem is in the form of adhyasa or bhranti, then knowledge is required. If change really is there behind embodiment, then how do you change that change? You can't reverse the change, understand? You can reverse distortion. You can't go back to teenage life. Hey Rama, how nice it would be, if we could go back to teenage life with this minds. Bhagavan says, I can send you all back to teenage, but you will all have only teenager's minds. So why the kya? It is better to go back to a teenage life with an old man's mind, mature, understanding. Dunya mein kuch nahi hai. Just imagine a teenager thinking, agar kuch hona ho to andar hi hai. Then he is great. I asked Bhagavan, can you send us all back, all our students and myself, back to teenage life so that we can continue classes? Yes. Bhagavan said, yes, I can send you all back to teenage life, but you will have only teenagers' mind. Then I said, no, please. I don't want it. We don't want it. Thus, you can't reverse change, please, but you can reverse distortion. Vedanta reverses our perception about ourselves. Vedanta doesn't reverse, some change. Why? Because change is not our problem. There is nothing. Oh, everything changes is wrong. I say everything is an appearance in the truth is Vedanta. Everything is an appearance in the truth is Vedanta. Not everything changes. Vedanta says embodiment appears in the truth, the universe appears in the truth, and truth itself is always there. It doesn't now appear, now disappear. It's always there. Thus some people look upon change as the problem, whereas the thinking people look upon distortion as the problem, adhyasa as the problem. And if change is the problem, you can't reverse it. You can't correct it. You can't negate it. You can't stop it. Change you can't stop. If the rope has really transformed to become snake, you can't do anything about it. Change you can't reverse. Change you can't stop. So if we are unhappy due to some distorted perception about ourselves, that can be reversed thus. An error can be corrected, can be reversed. This is what you have to do, japa, mantra. Distortion can be reversed, change cannot be reversed. Om Namah Shivaya. Distortion can be reversed, change cannot be reversed. Om Namah Shivaya. Hey Rama. This is a wise man's way of japa. This is what you have to do, japa. You have to recite realities, not recite some emotions. Don't recite emotions, recite realities. Recite in your mind the truths of life. Change I can't reverse, error I can reverse. Namo Namah. We have a mantra, at the time of Upanayana. Kamo Karshir. Naham karsham, namo namaha, namo namaha, namo namaha. My desire committed the sin, I did not commit the sin. My desire committed the sin, I did not commit the sin. Namo namaha. Naham karsham, kamo karsham, naham karsham, namo namaha. I didn't do it. Desire, my desire. Therefore, Bhagavan introduced me to Vedic law. Don't stop me don't keep me away from the beautiful Veda. Introduce me to Veda. Iti, a boy says to Bhagavan in the same manner. Change can't be reversed. Distortion can be reversed. Namo Namaha, Namo Namaha. Are you able to follow? Does it not make a difference? If we are here as individuals due to some change, who is going to stop it? Changes cannot be stopped even by Bhagavan. Therefore, our problem is not change. Our problem is a wrong view about ourselves, a wrong equation of our being, a wrong equation. I am a form is a wrong. It is not a view about the form, it is a view about the truth as a I am not looking that I am this body is my view about myself, the truth. It is a distortion about the truth, not a distortion about the body. Body is not distortion. I am not mistaking the snake for the rope, but I am mistaking the rope for the unembodied, the snake quality free rope. I am seeing it as, so I am judging the rope as. What is being judged is the truth. As what it is judged is an error. What is judged is the truth. And if it is judged wrongly, that wrong judgment is what is called error. I am limited is a wrong judgment about the eternal. And a wrong judgment can be reversed. Age you can't reverse. So even if some scientists really come up with some medicine which can reverse the age, let us say, is going to reverse the mind also, please understand. It is going to reverse the age, it is going to reverse the mind also. Side effects unimaginable. But all things are. But what is the use? Because our problem is not aging. Our problem is the view that I am subject to it. The problem is that I am a form subject to it. And that view that I am subject to aging needs to be reversed, and it cannot be. The above who imagines change behind embodiment is incorrect. In fact, even the Purvapaksha is very particular in saying that embodiment is the result of change on the part of ignorance, but we would like to answer it in a more comprehensive manner. We would like to answer it in a more comprehensive manner. That comprehensive manner is, to say embodiment is not the result of any change, either on the part of ignorance or on the part of embodiment is not. Embodiment is not. It is okay, some of the Charvakas say it is that desire on the part of the parents that brings about a child. So it is all change and all that. These are all things. This is a certain view, a wrong view. It's not that easy to say that life is a product of life is not biological understanding. Life is the truth equating with a biological body. It is that equation that is life. I am the form is life. Not form is life. Form is not life. That thinking that I am the minus that thought I am the body. Without that thought I am the body, then there is no life. Like in the deep sleep state, there is no thought that I am the form, then there is no living there, just lying. Ukta adhyasa varnanasya sangatyam. The Purvapakshi's view that embodiment is the result of change is asangatyam, means it is unjustified, it is illogical. Why? Sarvamevayetat varnanam sangatam. The entire above view is asangatam. Asangatam means is improper, illogical, is out of context. It's out of context. It is illogical, it is unreasonable. Why? Because nobody experiences an error as a result of change. There is no experience, there is no experience of any distortion as a result of change. When you mistake the rope for snake, and you look back, in retrospect, you say, you don't say that I saw a snake that was the result of change. You say, because of ignorance, only rope looked snake. Everybody recollects an error as a perception, a wrong perception. When I didn't know the rope as rope, it looked like snake. This is the recollection. When you look back and say, what was that? I saw a post, it happened to be a post, but then it looked like a man because I didn't see it as a post. This is how we recollect. It was just a rope. And because I didn't recognize it as a rope, it looked like a snake. This is how we recollect. I thought it is. Whenever I don't understand a reality as it is, then I misunderstand it differently. So misunderstanding is always due to ignorance, lack of right knowledge. Wrong knowledge is always due to lack of right knowledge. It is not due to any change. Wrong knowledge is always due to lack of right knowledge, not due to any change. I am the body is wrong knowledge about myself. That can only be due to lack of right knowledge about myself. And the idea that I am the body is only a wrong knowledge due to lack of right knowledge, and it is never due to change. Therefore, as long as we think there is some change behind our problem, we can never solve the problem. Why? Because behind our problem there is no change. There is a lack of right knowledge. If change can bring unhappiness, then I can't stop the change. Change is something nobody can stop. Wherever something is subject to change, it will continue to change. Who is going to stop it? The body changes and goes back to the elements. And again it changes, it goes into another some. The same matter will be a matter in somebody else's body after 100 years. Is it not? So, ज़मीन में डालेंगे. It will go into the ashes. Or you burn it. Or you do jala samadhi. It will go into, it will be eaten up by fish. So that means the same body will be a part of fish. And that fish will be eaten by some African. So the Swami is getting eaten. And then if you think about these things, I mean really this is something funny, you can't back on this. Change can never stop. How many Swamis are dumped in Ganga? All the Swamis, living in Hardwar and will be dumped in Ganga. Sabut. You know Sabut? They will be just dumped in Ganga, Sabut. And the fish, no wonder those fish, is so fat. And Swamis themselves, all Bhandara. And after Bhandara, what I am saying is, please, you can't stop the change of that which changes. Change comes. So if I am unhappy because of some change behind, even Bhagavan cannot stop it. So our prayers will be of no use. Because if I pray to Bhagavan to give me something which he can't give, no. If you tell Bhagavan, please give me one square circle, he says, I can't. You can't. Therefore, Bhagavan gave me fire without heat. He can't give. So, supposing we ask Bhagavan, please liberate me from pain. If it is true that there is change behind the pain, he cannot liberate me from pain because he can't stop change. What is it that Bhagavan can help me? In what way can he help me? In which situation can the truth help me? The truth can help me only to rectify my thinking. If wrong thinking were the problem, right thinking, if right thinking is the answer, then I can pray to God to inspire me to what is possible can be accomplished. There is only one thing that is possible to accomplish in this world: rectification of vision, nothing else. Rectification of vision alone is possible. You can't do anything else in life. I can't remain young forever. You can't be rich forever. You can't enjoy the love from somebody always. No. There is nothing that you can bank on. Things change, and therefore, there is only one thing. It is, if my view of myself, if it is the reason, if the lack of right knowledge, if this is the problem, then I can gain right knowledge. And that way Vedanta becomes pramana, because by definition pramana means what gives you right knowledge. Vedanta is a pramanam, it is karanam pramana, meaning it is a means to right knowledge. That is the definition of pramanam. Karanam. Prama means right knowledge, Karanam means the means. Karanam pramana means a means to right knowledge. So Vedanta is Karanam. It is a pramanam, the Shabda pramanam, not Pratyaksha pramanam. Shabda pramanam. And it is meant only, it is not meant to stop any changes. Tatha hi loke anubhavaha. I am going to take my own time to explain line after line. Aram system, because it's so enjoyable writing. Tatha hi loke anubhavaha. This is how everybody experiences in the world. How? Iti loka siddhasya. What is known to everybody? Sabko malum hai ye baat. Hey, why did you see the rope as snake? Because I failed to recognize it as the rope. Everybody knows this. I didn't know that it was rope, so I saw it as snake. What can I do? I didn't recognize that it is. Sometimes in a meeting you go and just say, hello, how are you? But suddenly you discover he is not your friend. He only looked like your friend. Is it not? Hello, how are you? Just bump into him. And that person is totally confused because he doesn't recognize you. Then again, sorry. Then you ask him, say, why did you do that? He say, I didn't recognize that. I didn't see him. I didn't recognize who he was. I thought, that is why I thought him to be my friend. All misunderstandings presuppose only lack of right understanding, not any change. This fact is well known. That is why it says, Loka siddhasya shukti rajata adhyasasya udaharanena. Bhashyakara gives the example of shell and silver because everybody knows that Shuktika, not seen as a Shuktika, is always seen as Rajatam. That makes it Loka Prasiddha, Loka Siddhasya. You bring up one person in this world who says, I failed to see, the ignorance about the shell underwent change and stood there as the silver as a coin, unless he is a waster of time in life. Imagining it. Wool gatherers. You see, nobody, bring one person who says that I saw the rope or the snake because rope underwent change and stood there as snake. Or something else changed and stood there as snake. Can anybody say that? Or my mind underwent change and stood there as snake. No change, Ji. There is no change. Then what is there? There is something I missed. There is something I missed to recognize, and that I mistake it. Therefore, sir, Shuktika, Shukti Rajata Adhyasasya Udaharanena hi Swavuktasya Adhyasa Lakshanasya Anubhava Anuharitvam Pradarshyitam Bhashyakarasya Pravruttiripi Tavanna Utpadanam Apekshate. Up to that. Don't worry about the words. I would explain it. It is not that Bhashyakara, what Bhashyakara says. It is not that Bhashyakara means that ignorance about the shell changes and becomes the silver. He doesn't mean the shell changes and becomes the silver. No change. He only says this. Shuktika hi Rajatavad avabhasate. I saw the very shell as silver. It is my perception, my distorted perception. I saw it for silver G. I judged it for silver G. I silently found myself with the judgment that it is silver. It is called a distorted perception, not transformation. Thus, life is not a result of transformation. Life is not the result of transformation. If life is not the result, if bondage is not the result, life means all this, all imperfect, this struggle. Struggle is not the result of transformation. Unhappiness is not due to some change behind. This universe is also not due to some change behind. Even though a scientist looks for that. A scientist is looking for some change behind the universe. You will never find. You will never find. A scientist always looks for some change behind the universe. A scientist will never look for, even though he looks for, he will never find, because the universe is not the result of change. By fundamentally, universe is something that appears and disappears. Otherwise, it is there to be seen, now it's not there. It is not there means, in the waking world is there, my body is there, my senses are there, my thought is there. This is called the universe, right from my thought. And there is a time when no world is felt, no body is felt, no thought is felt, which you call casually sleep. But it is nothing but the negation of the universe. It is a state of resolution of the appearance. It is a state of resolution of the appearance. Therefore that, and at the same time, the thought and the senses and the body and the universe, everything reappears, which we call waking. When the universe that begins from my thought, even the thought that I am the body, right from that thought, the whole universe it begins. When it begins, we call it waking. When it resolves, we call it sleep. Even the word sleep is not understood. Sleep means people say, सो जाते हैं. What does it mean? सो जाने का मतलब क्या है जी? हमें जी सो जाने का मतलब क्या है? बेड पर लेट जाना, लाइट बंद कर देना, बस वही सो जाना, और क्या है? ऐसा नहीं जी. It is a resolution of the universe. Resolution. Therefore, hey Purvapakshi, when Bhashyagara gives the example of shell and silver, he is giving it specifically to show that behind appearance there is no change. Bas itna hi hai. It is adhyas. Change doesn't stand there as the silver. Shell itself stands there, looking silver. In that manner, Brahman itself stands there as a jiva, you and me. Brahman itself, truth itself stands as you and me. Truth itself stands as the universe. Not some change stands there as the universe, or some change stands there as Mr. So-and-so. Truth stands. These are very, very serious implications, gee. Otherwise, man will always think, there is something must have happened, something must have happened. Kuch hua hoga, kuch hua hoga, kuch hua hoga. That's why we are aware. Aisa nahi hai. A scientist says kuch to hua hoga. Some event must have, some bang must have happened. A scientist always says kuch to hua hoga. Some change must have taken place somewhere. And a layman says, a layman doesn't care. A scientist imagines. He just imagines must have happened. Vedanta is saying, there is no change, there is no event behind life. There is only ignorance behind life, not event. There is a lack of reflection behind life. There is a lack of reflection behind unhappiness. There is a lack of reflection behind struggle. There is a lack of reflection behind attachment. There is a lack of reflection behind samsara. There is a lack of reflection behind sense of limitation, etc. There is no change. Either on the part of ignorance or on the part of truth. Anyway, it is a very, very, very embarrassing thing every time to say there is no change on the part of ignorance, because ignorance never changes, is it? But what is useful to think again and again is, behind appearance there is no change but non-vichar. That is useful. It's a useful thinking. Behind my unhappiness there is no change, there is only lack of reflection. All psychological problems are there due to lack of reflection. Certain chemistry problems, they are different. Like hunger is. As long as I'm alive, hunger is there. That is a chemical reaction. But I am. Hunger is my attribute. That is lack of reflection. Hunger is my attribute, is lack of reflection. Aging is a chemical reaction. I can't do anything about it. But that aging is my quality, is a lack of reflection. So there are two different things. I can't stop aging, but I can correct the reflection. I can correct the equation with the aging. There is a being which doesn't age, because The one who registers the aging is definitely ageless. Otherwise, how do we really explain? This is something, I can't take another step. Who knows the aging process? The one who ages can't know the age. The body can't feel its own age. The mind that disappears can't really see its own disappearance. What disappears can't see its own disappearance. Therefore, the one who is aware of the aging process, the one who is aware of the aging process of the body and the mind, definitely is ageless, is eternal. That has great implications. That has great implications. So the person becomes a very serious thinker. Then he has no time for anything else except doing nirdharana of his nature. To the extent he follows Vedanta, to that extent I am sure he loses interest in these stupid things. Yes, to the extent you start following Vedanta, to that extent you become pleasantly serious, not seriously serious. Not that very seriously. Not morosely serious. Not morosely serious. Not depressingly serious. Not depressedly serious. But very cheerfully serious. Take it up very seriously. My God, the one who is age-free is right there looking at the... Even though the unhappiness is so much, the struggle is so much felt by man, it is wont to him to think that. It is wont for him to think. It is very natural for him to think that if there is a freedom from all these struggles, it must be somewhere. He always sees a big distance between himself and the answer. You see, whenever you are having a problem, you think the answer is miles away. You think the answer is miles away. In a state of in a state of despairiness, desperation, in a state of desperation, one always imagines the answer is too far away, too far away, too far away, too far away. But here Vedanta says, no, the answer is, there is no gap between the problem and the answer. There is no gap between the problem and the answer. Where there is a problem, underlying the problem is the answer. The answer underlies the problem. I am the wave is the problem, the answer is underlying it as the water. I am water is the answer. Therefore, what Vedanta says is something fantastic. Provided really it must be, it is. Therefore here, one says, this example that is given by Bhashyakara, rope itself looks snake, shell itself looks silver, post itself looks man, looks are seen, rope itself is seen as snake, shell itself is seen as silver, post itself is seen as man, has long-reaching implications, meaning it is only seen so, it doesn't become so. It doesn't become so through change. I am seeing the truth as the embodied individual. The truth has not become. There is no becoming. There is only being seen. The sky has not become blue. I only see it blue. It is only seen so. It hasn't. But it is not so. Nor has it become so. Three you can think of. I only see it so, but it has not become so, nor is it so. Three things. to be meticulous. I only see the crystal as blue. I see only the crystal as orange or rose in color. But actually it is not rose. I only saw it rose. It is not rose, nor has it become rose. Thus, the kind of examples that Bhashyakara has given establish that behind our problems there is no Anyatha Grahana is due to terminology. You can pick up all this terminology. Anyatha Grahana. गर्मियों में करेंगे थोड़ा बहुत टर्मिनोलॉजी लिख के उसको पढ़ते रहने से आनंद आता है. What will you do? All the time you will be saying, oh, it is very hot, it is very hot. You have said it so many times. Since morning, my God, how many times you have said that? Oh, it is very hot, it is very hot. And the other one also says, yes, it is true, it is very hot. So we are doing only anuvada, the mutual anuvada. I say, it's very hot, the other one, yeah, it is so hot. Pathani when it is going to rain. I'm just, yeah, he also feels there is not going to be any rain. What is it all? This is what is called chewing the cud. Chewing the cud means, saying the same thing again. Instead of that, get occupied. Without talking, bear with what you can't solve. Bear with the hate without talking about it. And then go through the notes. Write down all the beautiful terminology. Let Vedanta become a part of you. The traditional Vedanta, correctly listened to. And the result is enormously great. You will be reflective about your being. Clear? Anena tu bhashyena kathamapi na sangacchate idam eka deshibihi kritam adhyasa varnanam. Just one more line. The Purvapakshi's way of describing the problem, describing the adhyasa, doesn't really conform to the method which Shankaracharya has used. Shankaracharya is saying the very reality looks different. The very reality is seen different. The very reality is distorted differently. Whereas the Purvapakshi is saying, it changes to become something. Ignorance changes to become something. He is imagining some kind of change. Whatever be that change, who cares? Whether you imagine the change in ignorance or in the change in the truth, it's all the same thing. You are imagining some change, but there is no change. Change is not a secondary cause. There is only a sole cause behind. There is only a sole reason behind the whole appearance. That is I don't look at myself. Avichara. The subject doesn't look at himself, the subject closely. Lack of reflection is the sole reason behind the entire creation, the entire struggle. Lack of reflection, lack of right knowledge, lack of self-education, lack of exposure to oneself. Exposure to Vedanta means lack of exposure to one's existence. I am exposed to my children, I am exposed to my business, I am exposed to my house, I am exposed to this work, that work, everything, the million things in the world. But I am not exposed to the conscious observer. Therefore, being exposed to Vedanta means being exposed to one's existence. And therefore, what is the sole reason behind the struggle? lack of exposure to oneself. Vedanta to oneself. Clear? Thus, Purva-Pakshi's way of describing adhyasa doesn't go with passion. We'll continue it later. Third topic. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnavadaya Purnameva Musishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, thank you. Rama Rama. हाँ जी.